videos in this video therapy course for anxiety. In this video, I'm going to show you how to swap the thoughts that are making you feel anxious for thoughts that will make you feel calm and confident. Okay, so first of all, you need to get a piece of paper and a pen. Then, the first step is to get hold of that thought that is making you feel anxious and write it down as if you were hearing it spoken out loud. So, for example, I'm going to mess up this presentation, everyone's going to laugh and lose respect for me. Okay, then the second step is to gather together all the evidence that supports that idea, regardless of how reasonable it sounds. So, for example, I just feel really, really nervous. There are more experienced people than me in the audience. The last presentation I did really wasn't that good. I struggle to defend myself when I'm put on the spot. The third step is to then find all the pieces of evidence that contradict these. So, for example, I always feel a bit nervous. This is quite normal, but despite that, I usually do an okay job. It is true that there are more experienced people in the audience, but there are also people with less experience and people with the same amount of experience. This doesn't mean that I'm going to mess up. It's true, my last presentation wasn't my best, but no one laughed and no one lost respect for me. People generally do understand when things don't go as we'd hoped that they would. And if they don't, if they choose to judge me negatively, this says something about them, not me. And all my previous presentations, they've kind of been okay. Okay, and finally, sometimes when put on the spot, I don't perform that well, but if I take a breath and take a little bit of time, I can usually come up with an explanation. Okay, the fourth step is to then identify which of those common thinking inaccuracies that we looked at in the previous video are coming into play here. So muddling up possibility and probability, which is definitely happening here. Of course, it's possible that you're going to mess up, but it's unlikely. History would suggest you're probably going to do okay. And also the worst case scenario is definitely being made into an inescapable reality in this case. Okay, the fifth and final step is to gather together all of this information and put together an alternative thought, a thought that will make you feel calmer and more confident about what is coming up. Quite a good technique to use here is to think about what you might say to a friend. Okay, so for example, you mostly do okay, and even though your last presentation wasn't that great, it wasn't a disaster, and that you were able to manage the fallout. Now write this thought down and keep it close by and read through it regularly to give your mind a chance to absorb it, to hold on to it. And then every time you notice your anxiety rising above about a 5 or a 6, get hold of that thought, write it down and go through these steps. And over time, if you continue to do this, your mind will eventually be able to reach an alternative thought, an alternative to your anxiety-provoking thought, without you having to go through the exercise. Okay. Finally, a note about the monitoring. Now, if you can go through this exercise regularly, over time you will notice your anxiety levels start to diminish. So you want to be monitoring your anxiety at the end of every day so that you are aware of these changes, because this will be so important for building your confidence that you can cope. And as your confidence builds, your anxiety diminishes further. Okay, in the next video, I'm going to show you the best relaxation technique that's out there. In the meantime, thank you for watching. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you soon.